Well, hello folks out there in YouTube land. Got a really interesting story that is just broke. Yeah, things are happening in South Carolina land. The athletic director suddenly resigned the day before their big game against LSU, and there are serious violations of the NCAA rules, according to a recent report. There's a lot going on in South Carolina, and I've told you folks there's a lot of smoke down there, and everybody's been telling me I'm crazy. Okay, now we see there's fire. Is it the fire I think it is, or is it something else? We're going to talk about that and see what's going on with it. And this is all over the news. It says South Carolina athletic director suddenly steps down after football team accused of violations. It says it was announced on Friday that South Carolina athletic director Ray Tanner will step down from his duties and assume a new role for the university as soon as his successor is found. The timing of his decision is either very suspicious or an unfortunate, poorly planned coincidence in terms of optics. Does this have something to do with a potential punishment for the football program? As of right now, we don't know. It says news broke on Thursday afternoon that the Gamecocks' former director of player personnel is accused of serious violations of NCAA legislation prior to his departure from the program on July 3rd. Taylor Edwards was told in June that his alleged behavior was sufficient to justify termination. Then it asks the question, what is going on at South Carolina? It says a lot of questions remain about what might have happened with the high-ranking football staffer and his bizarre, undiscussed resignation. He oversaw head coach Shane Beamer's entire recruiting operation and served as the primary liaison between the program and South Carolina's NIL collective, so the accusation of infractions that led to his ouster are rather suspicious. So he was the head dude in charge of recruiting and NIL connections. Wow. I mean, that's a big player in this whole game of chess. And to have the athletic director resign the day before game day is going to be there, the biggest day of the year for their football program, is really odd. Now, I don't think it's health related as far as the athletic director, because I watched his discussion with the president, and he said it's a happy day. He said they've just been talking about it and that he wanted to take a step back. But he's still going to be there as an advisor and will still be involved with the South Carolina Gamecocks. And he was a great baseball manager, won 2 national titles for them, by the way. So he's pretty beloved when it comes to that. But as an athletic director, it's been dicey for him because, you know, if your football program's not winning, then people get upset with you. And it's really hard for a head coach to become an athletic director. It's usually not a good idea because those are 2 totally different jobs. One is very political, one's raising money, one is about, you know, understanding people. Whereas a baseball manager, head coach, something like that, you're trying to get young men to perform at a high level, very competitive, very task-oriented. They're just 2 very different jobs, and they usually don't combine well at all. But anyway, he's still beloved for winning those 2 national titles. And he may want to get out of there before it gets too ugly because he doesn't want his reputation sullied by what's going on with the football and all of that stuff, which sounds like it's not a very good situation. And it talks about if that wasn't mysterious enough, the news of Tanner's resignation was announced 24 hours after the report about Edwards. The 66-year-old will remain as AD until his replacement is found. It talks about the 2 things may not be related. Tanner's decision to step away and Edwards' alleged violations may not have any connection. Either way, the perception of these 2 separate occurrences happening in such close proximity to each other is poor. Maybe Ray Tanner and South Carolina are getting out ahead of a potential NCAA investigation. Maybe it's just bad timing. If it is the latter, the Gamecocks should have held Friday's announcement next week. The dots are going to be connected even if they don't make a picture. Speculation is going to run wild. Now, I can tell you this is crazy. You have this happen the day before the biggest day of the year is just shocking to me. And we know there's been a lot of speculation about Connor Stallions and all of that. And right now, the big Michigan investigation is at its peak. It's at its zenith. And the notice of allegations have been out for a few weeks, but we've not seen them. We have not seen the actual document, which is shocking to me that hasn't been leaked by Michigan or the NCAA. We've not seen the actual document, and we don't know what all's in there. It may have nothing to do with South Carolina. This could be just total speculation. We don't know, but it could. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of reporting that Connor Stallions had reached out to a particular team, and I'll show you all that, and I'll show you the mountain of circumstantial evidence. It's not proof, But there is circumstantial evidence that doesn't make sense as far as South Carolina winning those two big ball games in 2022 that knocked not one but two teams out of the playoff, which was my VOLS and the Clemson Tigers. And, of course, South Carolina, prior to those two games, their offense was stagnant. They'd scored 10 points against Missouri and 6 against Florida. Then they suddenly scored 100 points between those two ball games, 63 with the Vols and like 30-something with Clemson, and beat Clemson at home, and Clemson had not lost a game at home in 39 games. They had a huge winning streak. And the Vols were hot as a firecracker, and South Carolina was down in the dumps. So something weird happened there. But again, it's speculation. But let's get a little bit more into this. And on footballscoop.com, ESPN reported that 12 of the 13 Big Ten schools had recorded that Stallions had purchased tickets for one of their games, and that ESPN lists Stallions purchasing tickets to more than 35 games at 17 different stadiums. Yahoo reported that Michigan targeted Tennessee, Alabama, Clemson, and Oregon in 2022. Tennessee not only told Yahoo which game Stallions purchased a ticket to, they know the exact time and when he transferred the ticket to another person. What's more, a VolQuest post from this past January emerged with a third-hand account of a spy within Stallions Network working on Michigan's behalf. And then later in footballscoop.com, another report came out about Connor Stalions, and it reads as follows. Moreover, a source with direct knowledge indicated to Football Scoop that Michigan may have attempted to assist the opposition of a potential college football playoff opponent in an effort to disrupt the team's potential path to the playoff. Now let's see, what team would have played not one but two teams that were headed to the playoff that year, which would have been Tennessee and Clemson. Both had one loss each, and had Michigan lost to Ohio State, they would have definitely got in over them because Michigan had a super weak schedule that year. And if you help out South Carolina and they were to beat those two teams, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And who would have had the signs for Tennessee and Clemson? Who had already scouted those two teams? Was that Connor Stalions? I believe I just read that, didn't I? So I find that very, very interesting. The one team that could have helped Michigan was South Carolina. How about them apples? Isn't that odd? It's not proof. It's not proof. It's just very, very interesting, don't you think? And let's talk about this circumstantial evidence. I just discussed the direct knowledge and the report by footballscoop.com. Also, of course, Shane Beamer's $25,000 fine for receiving information about another team back when he was an assistant coach. He got fined for that. The fact that South Carolina had only scored 16 points in the two prior games, then suddenly scored 100, had a 550% increase in scoring, 9 straight touchdowns against Tennessee, and it seemed like every play we were in, they were always in the perfect play. It was like whatever defense we set up in, if we were set up for the run, they'd pass. If we were set up to blitz them, they had the perfect answer for that. They always had the perfect answer. It's almost like they knew what our plays were. And people were even talking about it. It was like, oh, there's no way they had our signs. It's impossible. Maybe it's not impossible. South Carolina, of course, beat Clemson, the second top 10 victory in a row for South Carolina. And then right after that, the next 9 games, they went 2-7. They finally, at the end of that, beat Jacksonville State because of a fumble at the end of the fourth quarter. So you would think a team that had just defeated 2 top 10 teams, playoff bound, would be hot as a firecracker. Same coach, same quarterback, go 2-7 next 9 games. Isn't that odd? And then, of course, the wristbands just for the Tennessee game, all of a sudden. Hadn't used wristbands all year long. And then suddenly, at home, not at Neyland, at home, they have wristbands. That way they can know what play to get in all of a sudden, which is weird because you would think you'd do that on the road if you were going to do anything like that because of the noise and all that, because you can't hear because, of course, Neyland gets loud and we're going to scream at all the wrong times. But no, when they were at their own stadium, they had to have those. Then the next year when they went to Neyland, they didn't use the wristbands. Isn't that weird? You'd had all that success against Tennessee with them, and the next year you didn't need them. And you got whooped by over 3 touchdowns. That's just so weird. Just weird.
Yeah, weird.
So anyway, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence there. And of course, if the question is, would Connor Stalions reach out to another team? Well, I don't know. Would he? Would he reach out and try to work with another team? I don't know. Of course, you know, the report that he was on Central Michigan's sideline, you know, in his Netflix special, he couldn't remember. He couldn't remember if he had on Central Michigan's shirt, hat, and had gotten in there through their sideline security. He had no idea if he could even remember if that happened. But he was able to remember over 3,000 signs that were possible against every team they played against because he had a photographic memory, I guess. But he couldn't remember if he was there wearing everybody else's garb. Couldn't remember that.
You serious?
Even though there was a picture of him sitting right there and him staring at it. He just couldn't remember. He said it didn't even kind of look like him, and then he laughed. A little wry smile. And of course, his buddy from Barstool Sports, or whatever his name is, Portnoy, said, yeah, he told me it was absolutely him. So we know he works with other teams. That's not a problem. But we're supposed to believe he wouldn't reach out to South Carolina, who was playing two playoff-bound teams that could get in their way.
Allegedly.
So anyway, I had to cover this. This is huge breaking news. And look, this may be unrelated. And I hope the athletic director, it's not a health thing. It didn't appear to be a health thing at all because of the way he discussed it. If it is, I wish him the absolute best because I know he's beloved there for winning those 2 national titles. But it's just the timing of this just makes no sense. It just doesn't. You're not going to resign the day before game day is going to be there. So a lot of this is weird. We'll find out more as we go. Again, this is speculation. I've said that all the way through this video. This is speculation. I can't prove this. But there's just more and more smoke billowing now. It's billowing. Do you believe me now that there's smoke? I've been telling you for a year now there's smoke. Some of you didn't believe me. Some of you did. A lot of you did. And we'll find out, like I said, but there's something big time going on over there. And for the South Carolina fans, let's just get real for a second. This is not 10, 20 years ago. If there is an NCAA problem, you're going to get some heavy slap on the wrist or something like that, lose some scholarships. With NIL, it won't really matter. There's not much they can do anymore. Anything NIL, they can't do a thing to you. And if it's recruiting, all they can do is really hit you with a fine and some scholarship reduction. The day of them wearing out a team for years is over. So it may end up, look, it was the best thing could have happened to the Vols. When Jeremy Pruitt got caught for paying players $60,000 over 2 years, we wound up cleaning house. We brought in Josh Heupel, Danny White, and I mean, ever since then, it's just been pum. It couldn't have been any better. So before you get all down in the mouth over this, it might be a good thing for you because you need a new athletic director who's going to be thinking about raising money and getting your facilities updated and doing all those types of things. And it was time for him to retire. He's getting a little older. And we'll see what happens with Shane Beamer. This may not be related to Connor Stallions. It might. We don't know. But, boy, there's a lot of smoke going on around there. And this was a big-time guy for him. So maybe it's recruiting. Maybe it's the sign thing. But that Michigan stuff coming out right now, it's at its zenith again. And boom, now you've got the AD resigning. Another guy got fired or resigned or whatever you want to call it. Very odd. And the day before game day. Terrible time. This is the worst time this could have happened for them. And look, I know a bunch of South Carolina fans think I'm bitter about 2022 because you knocked us out of the playoff, and you may have done it because of Connor. Who knows? I am not bitter.
Took that from me. Stole that from me. Killed that from me!
Okay, I might be a little bitter about that. But, we'll see how this plays out. But I will be watching it closely. And if you like this content, hit that like button. And if you want to keep up with this stuff, because I'm going to keep up with it, you need to hit this button right here. There has never been more reason to hit that subscribe button than there is today, because I'm going to be all over this like a duck on a June bug. And right over here is the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.